is up, all you beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are discussing the very strange disappearance of Nancy Moyer. But before we get into it, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up because it's a free way to help the missing out. Also, if you're new here, hello, my name is Brittany. My sister, Jessie Grace Moore, went missing from Wenatchee, Washington on June 20th of 2016. Everything I do on this channel is in honor of her, so Grace, this is for you. Alright you guys, so Nancy Moyer was only 36 years old when she went missing from Tenino, Washington in Thurston County. And this is the third missing persons case I have covered from Thurston County. Remember, I did Matthew Anfeld, and then I also did Logan Schindelman. I will leave those videos linked down below, but a lot of people have reached out to me and said that the disappearances from this area are so strange and unexplainable. Nancy is described as being an incredibly hard worker, a loving mother, a great friend, an amazing sister. She really seemed like such a wholesome woman. Nancy was estranged from her husband, Bill, at the time of her disappearance. They had been separated for about 2 years, but they really cared about their daughters and just wanted to give them the best life, so they really worked together. And they didn't even go to court to get a parenting plan. The two just decided that Nancy would keep the girls during the week, and then Bill would keep them Thursday through Sunday on the weekends. Nancy had been an accountant at the Department of Ecology for 12 years before she went missing, so she was like really riding for this place clearly. And on Friday, March 6, 2009, Nancy got off of work at around 4 p.m. She gave a coworker a ride home. It was Friday night and Nancy was kid-free, so at 6:45 she stopped at a market in Tenino to get 2 bottles of wine, 3 packs of cigarettes, and a microwavable dinner. A police officer that was actually running radar in the area was parked in Nancy's neighborhood, and he physically saw her get out of her car with her groceries and go into her house. At around 11 p.m., one of Nancy's neighbors would later tell police that he heard what sounded like a hurried voice coming from a woman, heard a woman say, "Hurry up, get into the car," and 2 car doors slam. The neighbor didn't think anything of it at the time. They just thought that Nancy was going on a drive with her kids. When Sunday evening rolled around and Bill went to drop off their daughters at Nancy's house, he noticed that the front door was slightly ajar. When they went inside, they found the TV and some lights on within Nancy's home. There were 2 glasses of wine on the table that still had some wine left in them. Nancy's purse, wallet, and cigarettes were left behind. Bill has said that just right away he felt like something was off. Nancy lived next to a market and would often walk there to get cigarettes or whatever, so they kind of thought that's where she would be, but he just said something wasn't sitting right with him with how the scene was. What was most suspicious to him is that Nancy never missed a drop-off time. Like, she knew what time her daughters would be there on Sunday night, and she wouldn't miss that for anything. So that was the first really big red flag. The 3 eventually decided to leave after waiting around for a little bit for Nancy to return. When Monday came around and there was still no word from Nancy, she was reported as a missing person. Police obviously look at the husband or ex-husband initially in an investigation, but Bill wanted to take a polygraph. He was more than willing to, and he passed out with flying colors, so he was ruled out as a suspect very quickly. There was absolutely no sign of a struggle in Nancy's house. There wasn't a lot police could do because there was little to no evidence, but they decided to fingerprint the glasses of wine that were left behind, and it turned out that only Nancy's fingerprints were on them. It really was like she just vanished out of thin air.
And the next day, the case was turned over to the Thurston County Sheriff's Department to now retired Detective David Howell.
Where does this case rank on the bizarre nature of it?
Top 5.
Top 5?
Between LA and here. Top 5.
That unique?
Very much so.
Police dug a little bit deeper and spoke to Nancy's sister, and it kind of came out that she was partying around the time of her disappearance, and she was just kind of living the single life, which there is nothing wrong with that. Apparently, when her home was searched, police found a lot of sex toys. I don't know what else they found in her room, but it led to police to believe that she was hiding stuff from her family, which sex toys, I mean, that's not really something you're going to share with your family, but whatever was found has not been released to the public. But that pretty much is all of the evidence that they had to go off of. Keep in mind, she went missing in 2009, so she didn't have a cell phone at the time of her disappearance, so there was no way to see if she had been texting someone or talking to someone on the phone. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but her car was parked out front after she went missing. So if the neighbor really did hear 2 car doors shut, was it possibly a different car? Let's talk about suspects in her disappearance though. Apparently on Saturday night, so March 7th, Nancy had plans to go on a date with one of her coworkers, and when she didn't show up, he thought it odd, so he went to her house. He noticed that the door was slightly ajar, so he let himself in. That he looked around, called her name, and then left. I don't know how close they were or what the nature of their relationship was, but who just walks into someone's house that they are just kind of dating? I just think that's kind of weird. Let me know what you guys think. When this man was initially interviewed, he said that him and Nancy had tried to have sex, but he couldn't perform, if you know what I'm saying. But then he was later interviewed by a different detective, and he told this detective that him and Nancy had engaged in sex. She had stayed the night at his house. So police really thought that that was suspicious, that he had changed his story during 2 separate interviews.
When he was interviewed by Detective Howell, he said that he tried to have sex with her, but he couldn't perform. And that she stayed the night, got up, had breakfast with him. When I interviewed him, he had sex, she went home that night, just totally the opposite.
And that's not the only thing Detective Ben Elkins found suspicious.
I asked this person, if you knew where Nancy Moyer's body was, would you tell me? And this person said, quote, no. I look at him, I'm like, oh, wait a minute here. No, seriously, would you tell me where Nancy Moyer's body was? And he chuckles, no.
And then there is this. When first questioned, the coworker submitted to a polygraph test, but the results were inconclusive. So is he willing to take one now?
We basically said, I don't know.
So this coworker is super sketchy, but he's actually the least sketchiest of the other 2 guys we're going to talk about. Let's discuss Bernard Howell. So in August of 2010, Bernard Howell, who was 26 at the time, was pulled over, and in his vehicle was 60-year-old Vonda Boone.
Bernard was upset, and he went to the walking trail. She walked past him, and then he followed her from behind. With the back of the knife, he clubs her over the head, and she doesn't get knocked out, and so they kind of scuffle for a second. He took the knife he had in his hand, and he slit her throat. Then he carried her down into the brush, and he actually had sex with her body.
The attack was vicious to say the least. Bernard was sentenced to only 27 years in prison because he took a plea in court. So he will be out in our lifetime, which is incredibly scary. What does Vonda's murder have to do with Nancy's disappearance, you might be asking? So Tenino is a very small town. The population was only about 1,700 in 2009. So the odds are just absolutely wild that one woman would go missing in 2009 and another viciously killed in 2010. Also, Bernard and Nancy had a connection. So Bernard lived about a mile away from where Nancy lived. He was a door-to-door meat salesman, and it is a fact that Nancy would purchase meat from him. And when her house was searched after she went missing, there were steaks in there that were sold to her by Bernard Howell. Nancy's daughter has said that she knows what Bernard looks like, and she does not remember him coming to the house and bringing those steaks. So it is theorized that Bernard could have brought those steaks to Nancy's house the weekend she went missing. This really makes you think that Bernard could possibly be a serial killer, because it seemed like he just wanted to hurt someone. And he had a connection to Nancy. He could have gone over to her house that weekend, seen that she was alone. Maybe they went somewhere together, and he did something to her. He has never been named an official suspect though. So from 2009 until 2019, there was really not a lot of activity going on with Nancy's case until Eric Lee Roberts calls the police and confesses to having killed Nancy while the two were engaging in rough sex. He was choking her with a scarf, and he didn't realize that he was suffocating her, and she died. Obviously, he was arrested, but he recanted his statement and has even said he doesn't even remember making that phone call, which is so weird and doesn't make sense at all. Like Bernard Howell, Eric Lee Roberts was a neighbor of Nancy's. He also worked with her at the Department of Ecology. And rumor has it that Nancy was dating or casually seeing Eric's nephew, but I don't think this has really been confirmed. But there's obviously a connection between the two. A 2-day search was conducted of Eric's home, but nothing would turn up. Something interesting I found on the Charlie Project, which I think is a reliable source, but I couldn't find it anywhere else. But I'll read you what I found. Eric's ex-girlfriend told police that he would become violent when he drank, and would choke her to the point where she would have to scratch him to get him off of her during sex. And allegedly, after Nancy's disappearance, Eric poured a concrete slab in kind of a random place on his property. It was towards the back of his property. He told his girlfriend he planned to make it a man cave or possibly a hangout area for his son, and she remembers thinking this was really odd because there was no outlets on or near it. All of this information on Eric Lee Roberts is so sketchy, but it is circumstantial, and he recanted his statement, so he was released shortly after confessing to police that he killed Nancy. I really have no solid theory with this one. All of these guys seem really shady. It could be one of them or someone else entirely. Nancy's family, however, is adamant that she would never leave her daughters. I think it's totally possible that she was hanging out with someone on Friday night, possibly at her house, and then she left with them because it doesn't seem like something happened at her house. It seems like it happened somewhere else, and she could have been comfortable with a person, comfortable enough to leave with them. If you have any information regarding Nancy's disappearance, please contact 360-786-5279. Again, 360-786-5279. But this is such an unfortunate story, and I really feel for her children and to everyone who has lost Nancy. And I hope that they get some closure after all these years. But that is it for me today, you guys. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch my videos. Look forward to more content soon, and I will see you on the next one, okay? Bye.
Really hard for me. Going to dances without taking pictures with my mom or turning 18 without her. I didn't like my life a lot. It's hard. I should have my mom, but I don't, and it sucks.